Well, hello, Amy. Welcome back to the podcast.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. How many years ago was it that we first connected when you were on the show?
God, it must have been, it was before I was pregnant.
Oh, yeah, no, it
So
was before. I remember that.
like 5 years, 5.5 years
You know
ago. I think
what?
I had just started my blog. So maybe 6 years ago.
I think it was when I was pregnant. Because
You
remember?
were pregnant.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So I think I was pregnant like way back then. And then we talked a lot about your blog and working with brands. And that was before, short form, TikTok. And then, we become friends, we stayed in contact. And in seeing your amazing success, I mean, it's such an inspiration to me because you're such an amazing person that like I grew to really adore and love. And so seeing how successful you were, it's like, oh my God. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Amy's incredible rise to success, especially with TikTok. I think you have what, over 1.5 million followers on TikTok around
Yeah,
there?
like 1.6.
Yeah, okay. And then you've got like close to like 500,000 on Instagram. So, you really, really capitalized on the short form content. So I want to dive into that. So why don't we first start with what got you in, when and how did you get into doing TikTok? Because you did, I mean, you had your Instagram before, because I know like you had it, but it wasn't really something you were
Yes.
doing a ton of that short form content. But then, TikTok came out, and give us kind of the background on that.
Okay. So I started as a beauty blogger, and that's when I met you, Erica, in 2016. And the first year I just did blogging. Then the second year I got onto Instagram, 2017, and I did that. And then after that year, then I got onto YouTube like 2018, and I was trying to build an audience there, but it was really hard, so saturated. Long form video really is a beast. And then year four is when I got on TikTok, so 2019. So I had a couple of friends of mine who were on YouTube, and they went down to VidCon in San Diego, and they were hoping to, gain insights for their YouTube channels. And they came back and just said, "Oh my God, everyone is talking about TikTok. You have to get on TikTok." They said all the presenters at VidCon were TikTok stars, all the analysts, all these people were just buzzing about it, right? So I got on to TikTok. And like most people who get onto TikTok for the first time, like it's very disorientating. Like you're just kind of thrown all these random videos because the algorithm is trying to learn what you like to watch as a viewer, because it's a recommendation based algorithm. Unlike, well, Instagram is trending that direction, and YouTube is a combination of recommendation, but also, heavily like who you follow, or subscribe to rather. And so like the first few days being on the app, like you're like, what am I looking at? It's all over the place. It's viscerally really intense. Like there's music and it's images flashing all over and short videos. So I didn't know what to make of it at first, but the longer that you spend on the app, the algorithm really starts to learn your behavior as a viewer and what you're interested in. So by the time you've watched it for 7 days or so on the app, it knows exactly what you want, and you open it up and it's going to start serving you. Like if you're into DIY, if you're into beauty videos, it'll start sending you that stuff, right? So I started playing around with it and had so much fun, because I felt like at that time in 2019, YouTube, Instagram were very entrenched in these unsaid like parameters around what the content was supposed to look like, feel like. Everything had to be highly produced. Instagram photos had to be perfectly lit. YouTube, like how could I ever compete with, some of these YouTube channels that were so just huge, beautiful productions, right? And I was trying to at the time, but it was definitely hard to break through. And then here on TikTok, that didn't matter. It was all about just the substance of the content and just being funny and creating some sort of emotional moment, right? And it didn't matter because everyone was shooting everything on their phone. So I started creating some videos there, like everyone does when they first get on there, like the dance videos, the funny videos. And then I posted one video about these different types of facial massage tools. And I did it in a funny, joking way. I was like, which tool is for you? And I did it synced to a song. I think it was the Sierra Step It Up song. And the first tool was like, if you're in your 20s. The second tool is like, gua sha, if you're on a budget. The third tool is this. And then at the end, I was like, oh, you need this one if you're old as fuck. And
Hmm.
like people loved it and it blew up to like 2 million views in a day. And I was like, oh my
In a
God, there's
day. Oh my
in a
gosh.
day.
But this was
So I
back
was
in
like,
2019, you
19.
said? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it might have been 2019 or early 2020.
Okay.
And so I was like, okay, there's something here. People are interested in beauty content, but they want it in a
Humor.
TikTok way,
Hmm.
which is funny. So I started doing like funny beauty videos. And then I did another video, which was just straight up education, what
Hmm.
I had been doing on my blog. And I did a video about this pillow that I use for after I get Botox or fillers or any kind of like face treatment done. It cradles the neck so that you don't sleep on your side and mess up like the fillers that you had, right? And the video was rather long. It was 30 seconds. And I thought for sure, I was like, oh, this is totally going to flop. But it got millions of views. I was like, okay, there's an appetite here for more like educational pieces.
Hmm.
And at that time, they had like this trending hashtags tab. They don't have it anymore. They recently got rid of it, but it would do like hashtag beauty, hashtag like a certain kind of dance or something, right? And so you could go there and you could look at all the videos underneath that hashtag, right? And so around this time, I started posting more educational content around beauty, skincare, hair care, and I think the app they were really trying to push into this more educational space to try
Hmm.
to compete with the other platforms. And so I constantly saw my content getting pushed to these trending hashtags under like hashtag hair care, hashtag skincare. And so I was able to really grow an audience. And that audience then got funneled back to my Instagram because people would find me on TikTok, then they would
Hmm.
like my content,
Yeah.
go follow me on Instagram. And then I started taking all the TikTok content once Reels launched, like I think a year later, and started just uploading and reposting it there. And now I upload it to Reels and to YouTube Shorts. And because at that time they were really pushing Reels, and I don't think a lot of people were posting at that time. That might have been like 2021.
Hmm.
Yeah. Then they started pushing it, and both platforms just really started to grow and took off. But one of my followers on Instagram DM'd me and they said they're like, Amy, it makes so much sense why TikTok took off for you because I always loved watching your stories. Like when it was just Instagram stories, I would go on there and I would take these more complex beauty topics and I would synthesize it down into basically a short form video, like
Hmm.
15, 30 seconds, explain something to them. And that skill translated so well on TikTok so that when I got on there, I was able to really hit the ground running. But it's kind of like when you look back, you see that all the dots connect, but like when you're in the process of going through it, you don't know how it's going to connect. Like that year 3, when I was doing this and I got on YouTube and taught myself how to do all the filming, do all the post production, like use Final Cut Pro. Like that took a long time for me to learn how to do. And
Hmm.
I'm still like such a novice at it. Like my editing skills are very basic, but that helped me so much that when I got onto TikTok, I could hit the ground running.
Hmm.
I had been practicing talking to the camera, doing short videos and stories. I had been practicing on YouTube all of those post-production skills so that by the time TikTok came around, it was like everything just came together.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Wow. And I do feel like you have the right personality for it because it just seems to come very naturally to you to come up with some of these like really funny, just little vignettes and just the different things that you do with the beauty and all that and combining it with makeup, not makeup, with music and adding that humor. We were talking offline. I'm like, you're so good at this. Like my brain does not work like that. I can never do that with the short form. But it just seemed like it was such a good fit for you. At what point did you realize when you were doing the TikTok thing that,
Mhm.
oh wow, this is going to be it for me. This is it. Like this is what I'm going to be doing at least, for a little while.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, I knew something was there that first year, I was like, okay, it's growing. I'm resonating with people. I'm finding an audience. There's something here. And I remember I was trying to explain to my husband, I was like, I'm on TikTok. It's going viral. Like I had this one video that I did. And then the first hour, it got 300,000 views. And I was trying to I was freaking out. And he had no idea what I was talking about. He, didn't know about it. And there's just little milestones I remember like that. But along the way, I felt like there's something here. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to continue down this path and lean into it. The same thing, like when I was reposting the content onto Reels, I was like, okay, it's growing. I think people like this. And I was reposting 3 videos a day on Reels at that point. I was like, okay, it's growing. I'm just going to keep leaning into this until something tells me it's not working anymore. So I'm trying to think if there's a specific point on TikTok. I was like, oh, like I can make this a viable business.
Yeah.
Probably like 2020 was when like the smaller indie brands were on there and exploring it, right? It really wasn't until like 2021 that the mid-tier bigger brands started to get on here, because then they weren't really sure what it was. They're like, oh, this is just a dance app. I don't know what this is, right? And I would say like 2021, when the bigger brands got on and they started doing more ads and wanting to work in a paid capacity, I was like, okay, there's something here for this to be a business. So
Yeah. How many followers did you have at the time?
I had around 250,000 followers on TikTok when I had my first brand deal. And I still remember like what they paid me, who the brand was. And looking back now, like they totally took advantage
Yeah.
because I don't think anyone knew
Nobody
what to
knew.
price things back then. But so I remember that was the first one I had. But when it started to consistently come in was around 500, 700,000. But here's the thing then. I started so early that at that time, people weren't sure what to make of it. Brands weren't
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what to price things at, right? And I think now, because it's matured a little bit, people know what to price it at, know what kind of views they're going to get from things. I have friends of mine who have 100,000, 200,000 followers on TikTok, and they work with brands all the time and big brands.
Yeah, because there's more brands on there. And would you find that with TikTok and short form content, is most of your revenue or business coming from brand deals, or is it coming from affiliates?
Yeah, so definitely 70% is brand deals.
Okay.
And then I'd say like 20% is affiliate and 10% is like other.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's like a fund with TikTok, but I've heard it's very, very nominal.
Yeah.
Like same thing with the YouTube Shorts. So I know you have 2 young, beautiful little girls, and you balance that along with creating a lot of content. That's the thing with the short form content, is it's not just like YouTube where it's like 1 video a week or 2 video weeks. I mean, not to discount the amount of work, like you said, YouTube is a beast in its own way, but like I do think that sometimes something like TikTok or Instagram, and all that content is its own animal, right? So first off, I'm curious, like how much content do you upload? Like how often are you uploading, and how do you manage that in your schedule? Like first off, like thinking of all these ideas and then filming them and all that.
Okay, yeah. So when I first started out and I was really focused on growing, I had in my mind this mental marker of 1 million on TikTok. I was like, I have to get there, right? And so at that point, I was doing 3 videos a day, sometimes
Oh my
5 videos a
God.
day.
Oh my
And
God. How long did that
I
last
know,
for?
yeah, that was a lot. I mean, I would go through stretches where I do like 3 months, 5 videos a day. And then I would go through another stretch, would be like 6 months, 3 videos a day. But it's a lot of content. But the great thing about TikTok is that I found the content ports over really well to Instagram and to YouTube Shorts. Whereas I don't find that it works in the opposite direction. Like if I create something with Instagram in mind, my Instagram audience and that algorithm, and I try to repost it onto TikTok, it usually doesn't do well. Whereas, TikTok stuff just seems to do well on the other platforms. So if I focus on just TikTok, create all this content, it's great because then I can use it and repost it other places. So now I post, I would say to maintain, and although, growing is great too, at least once a day. Yeah.
Mhm.
And well, the thing is, I guess 5 times a week because I don't post on the weekends. I
Mhm.
don't work on the weekends.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So, how are you posting 5 videos a day? Because I'm sure in that point you had babies or you
Yeah.
were pregnant
So I
or
had I had one. I
Mhm.
had Chloe,
Okay.
and I would say it started to grow. I had like 250,000 followers, and I found out I was pregnant, and it was a happy surprise, but it was a
Yes.
surprise. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember I was having this conversation with my husband. I was like, there's something here. I need to keep doing this, like these 5 videos a day. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. And he was like, we'll make it work. And it did. But I mean, I would put my daughter to bed. And then at 8 o'clock, I would head into my bathroom. And from 8 until 1 in the morning, I would be in there filming videos. And then
Mhm.
I would post them the next day. And I would post them all at a specific time, like based on when I had the most followers on the app. And at that time, because there wasn't as much content, I literally posted all 5 videos exactly at the same time. Because the way the
The
algorithm on
one
TikTok
same, like,
works,
so you pick, like, say
yeah.
1 p.m. and all 5 videos you would post at 1 p.m.?
Yeah, I wouldn't
Huh.
recommend doing that now,
Yeah.
but at the time, I just saw that it really worked because all of my audience or most of my audience was on at 4 o'clock in the
Mm.
afternoon, and so at
Mhm.
4 o'clock in the afternoon, I posted all 5 videos. And the way the algorithm on TikTok worked, at least at that time, is they would take a video and push it out to 500 people. Not necessarily your followers,
Mhm.
most likely not your followers. And then based on how it performs with those 500, then it
Then they
goes to
push
the
it
next
out.
tier, and then the next tier, and the next tier, and the next tier. So I knew that by pushing out 5 videos, I knew that those 5 videos weren't going to all the same people. So I could do that and push it out. Then
Mm.
it's changed now. Like I definitely space out at least an hour in between videos if I'm going to post more than once a day on TikTok. But to maintain, I definitely need to post at least 5 times a week on TikTok. But it's tough. I mean, there are some days or some weeks that I don't post 5 times. There's sometimes I post 2 times in a
Mhm.
week, but I have to do that also for my sanity.
God,
But it's tough. Like I have a nanny, my
yeah,
kids. My daughter's in preschool.
yeah.
My little one goes to French school. I have a super supportive partner who helps me, with the kids in the house. Um, but yeah, it's tough. I mean, I definitely have to create boundaries for myself with my family. Like I guess not recently, maybe 6 months ago or so, I told my audience I'm not going to post on the weekends anymore, and I'm not going to work at all on the weekends. Before, what ended up happening is like a Saturday morning, I'd be like, oh, let me post this really quick. But the
Mhm.
thing is that when I post content, I
And
always want to
comments.
engage with my audience. So I answer comments, if there's DMs, like if I posted some stories or something. And so I kind of get sucked into working. And I realized those little tasks that I was doing or that little post, I wasn't doing anything to really move the business forward. All I was doing was these kind of little things that
Mhm.
were just draining me and taking away from my family and making me feel really stressed out. So I just put a line down and said, I'm not going to post on the weekends. And my audience was so wonderful. They just respected that, and they said, of course, like you have kids, we totally get it.
Mhm.
And it's nothing has changed. My platform's still there, my audience is still engaged. So I think it's okay. Like when I was a younger creator, I would worry like, oh my gosh, am I going to lose my audience? Do I need to
Mhm.
constantly be serving them content? And I felt this anxiety around just constantly serving them. And then I realized like I don't need to do that if
Yeah.
I take the time to really create authentic, genuine content that's educational, content that helps them in their life in some way, and take the time to build the community, then they will be there. And I can take my weekends off. And when my kids come home from school, I don't do any work. And so that way I can be really present with them. I'm not unfortunately, like you know how it is being busy with a business. Like I'm not at every drop off and pickup and
Yeah.
all of that. But when
Mhm.
I am home and they're here, I'm present and I'm not on my phone.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, you have to have help. When you're running a full-time business,
mhm,
especially with
yeah.
little kids. But how how long or how many hours would you say you dedicate to your business in a week? Because if you're uploading once a day, and then I imagine it's different now than when it was before, because at that time, yes, you're uploading 5 times a day, but you probably were not dealing with brands and brand deals, and that in and of itself
Yeah.
can be a full-time job. I don't know if you have anybody helping you with that, or and we could talk about if you have a team or if it's all you. I'm curious about that as well. But how much time would you say a day that you work on your business, or maybe if you even want to give a rundown of kind of what your weekly schedule looks like?
hmm So, my kids have school at 8:30, and my husband's great, or my nanny will take them to school in the morning. And so I start my day at 8 o'clock, right when they leave, and my day gets going. So from 8 until they get home, my daughter comes home at like 4:30, but sometimes the nanny will get her, and then she'll go get the little one, and they'll be back at 5. So it's a full work day. It's, shooting content, ideating. It's, sometimes I'll just be like, okay, I need to get into my DMs, and I'll just sit for 4 hours and do DMs. I
Oh my
like to do
God.
block scheduling. I started doing that recently, and it's been really helpful with my efficiency and productivity. So like yesterday, I filmed 19 videos, and
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah,
But
I
you
had
didn't
to
come
edit
up with
them.
all the ideas though. Yet,
Yeah,
like, do you do a separate kind of, like you said, ideation, like brainstorming, and
yes.
you have it like outlined and you just film?
Yes. So block out my schedule. I'm like, okay, on this day, I'm going to sit down and just brainstorm and ideate all morning until lunch. And I go back and I look at old content. I see what worked. I see what didn't. I look at the analytics. I, digest content and see what's the appetite? What are people interested in right now on TikTok? And then I look at like timeliness, like what's happening right now in culture. Like, is it New York Fashion Week? Is Super Bowl coming up? And then I try to think about what can I create that feels authentic to my platform around things that are happening in culture? Because, culture happens in two places. Culture happens on the apps with the creators creating that, like the trends and trending sounds and stuff. But then there's culture outside of that, mainstream
Mm-hmm.
culture. And so I think to be an effective content creator, it's about knowing what's going on in both places and then create content around both so that you
Mm-hmm.
have a really robust um, body of work for your audience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ideate and then I'll script everything out, you know, um, script it, and I'll even write out like what are the shots, like
Yeah.
okay, so here I'm going to do this and I'm going to stand in the mirror, here I'm going to do this and I'm going to be at my vanity, right? So that when it comes time to shoot,
It's
I just
boom,
go into my
boom.
bathroom and I'm like boom 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 boom
Mm-hmm.
boom 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 boom, and it takes like 3 or 4 hours, but then I have 19 videos in the queue, and then tomorrow will be my editing day, and all day I will just edit those videos. So this is something new that I've put into practice, but it's been really effective. I think um, just with everything going
Yeah.
on with kids, like you said it best to me. Still remember in the interview that I did, that when I interviewed you for my blog,
Yeah.
I asked you, I was like, how do you run a business and have kids? And I think you were pregnant with your second,
My
and
second. Yeah. Yeah.
yes, and you said to me, you're like, you just have to cut the fat. I say that all the time now, Erica, and that has stuck in my
Oh,
mind because
good.
it's so true. Like that's what it takes,
Mm-hmm.
to juggle all of this, is really get clear on I have to get clear on, like, what are my goals, what are my priorities, and
Mm-hmm.
then cut away everything else that doesn't serve my goals and
Yeah.
what's important to me.
Yeah,
So,
well, I'm glad that helped. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer. It's kind of like triaging. It's like what's going to move the needle either in making you more income
yeah.
or growing your following, because there's so many things that so many people do that just doesn't do
Mhm.
either. And when you
Yeah.
have limited time, you have, like you said, you have to prioritize the things that are gonna grow
Yeah.
grow for you. And I'm such a big fan of exactly what you're explaining, like the batching. That's how I operate my business. Like I have a whole bunch of podcast interviews today, like a ton of them,
Yeah.
because I have my filming day. Because you have to put your makeup on once, and you do the setup once, and then
hmm
boom, 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 and it's done, right? So I think that's so cool to hear how you do it. So how much time? I'm super curious, because for me, like creating short form content is like, oh, it's such a mind thing. But how much time does it take you to first off, like do brainstorming. Like when you're doing brainstorming, like are you able to just come up with like a bunch of different ideas? And then from there, like for each video, how much time do you think it really takes you from the outlining and kind of conceptualizing to the filming and then to like the editing? What would you say? I know it's hard because you separate it all, but
Yeah. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what type of video it is because I do a variety of
hmm
videos. Like when I do the funny 15-second, like trending sound, lip syncing one, that can be pretty quick, but in terms of the execution and filming it and editing it, but coming up with those is harder. I have to
hmm
sit down and like really put my creative hat on for that one. But there are times like I'm just in the moment and I will think of something funny or something funny will happen. And because I'm on the app so much, like I'll see something funny happen and I will like immediately relate it to a trending sound that I've heard on the app. Like for
mm
instance, this happened the other day and a friend of mine was on another podcast, and on that podcast, they were saying something about how it's like never too late to start, and she's like beyond 40, and they were like, "Oh, look, see, it's never too late to start," and she was laughing, but she texted me and she was like, "Oh, I don't know if this is, a compliment
Yeah.
or not,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and then immediately I thought of the TikTok sound. I was like, "A win is a win." A win is a win, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's like little things that just come up like that. I'm constantly like writing notes down in my app or
Mm.
the notes app or like on a piece of paper when I like think of something funny, and then I'll just go and reference those like when I'm doing those funny ones. I do more in-depth educational videos that are about a minute, and those take more production and planning
hmm
because I have to do the research behind the ingredients or the skincare products or the technique or whatever it is that I'm talking about. And then I need to script it out. And for those, I'll actually do quite a bit of research and look at, hey, what other videos have people done on the app about this topic? And I'll see what they've talked about, maybe things that they haven't talked about, then I'll be like, okay, I need to put this in my video because other people have not talked about this. So this will be new and fresh to the community. So, I mean, those could take anywhere from, I don't know, like a couple hours to like a full day to do.
Wow.
But I mean, batch tasking has helped so much because like I'll sit down and I'll do all the research like in one day for a
hmm
bunch of different videos. And then, but yeah, I think it's anywhere from a few hours to a full day to do one of those.
Wow. It's a lot. So I you kind of alluded to this, and I'm a big believer of it too. But it sounds like you do spend a lot of time also consuming content on TikTok, like really
You
knowing,
have to.
understanding what's on there. For me, for YouTube, I always say the same thing. Like for me, I'm on YouTube like all day, every day, pretty much, watching
Yeah.
videos of my clients, but like what else is going on? Like you have to have your finger on the pulse. It sounds like for TikTok and what you do, it's similar.
Oh, it's the same thing. I feel like Instagram, you kind of can create in a vacuum and
hmm
just put out whatever it is you want to put out in that moment. But like TikTok, it really helps if, as you said, I have a finger on the pulse of what's happening because the trends are so ephemeral. I mean, it could be trending and then 5 days
It's
later, no
done.
one's talking about it anymore. It's done. So you have to be really quick to jump on those trends. So even if I have like all these scripted ideas and planned out, especially for the funny videos that use trending sounds. Before I go to film them, I will sit down and I will watch about an hour of TikToks. And I will just make sure that everything that I have planned out still resonates with what's happening.
hmm
And there are times like I've gone and filmed a bunch of videos, but I don't post them because by the time I go to post them, sometimes that trend has gone. And so I'll like kind of watch a few videos, kind of see what's going on, check a few other people's accounts, and I'm like, okay, I don't think that this will resonate with my audience anymore. And so I think I have like 300 videos in my drafts
Oh
that
wow. Okay,
are
you're too late on.
finished, but I
hmm
don't feel will
hmm
resonate for whatever
hmm
reason. And then sometimes maybe, in the future, months later, I'm like, oh, actually, like I think this video will resonate. Like, let me post it. And sometimes it does really well, and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah,
Wow.
timeliness is so important on TikTok.
Yeah. So you have to be on the app a lot. Like how much time do you spend consuming content, you think?
I would say I do about an hour, 2 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
I do about an hour. I guess it kind of varies. Like if it's a shoot day, I will spend more time on that day, but I'll probably do like an hour to 2 hours.
And I think that's a really important lesson for people because I think people don't realize that. Like I'm kind of blown away sometimes by people that will kind of sign on with me for my boot camp and coaching, and they're like, I never watch YouTube. I'm like, you can't not. You have to
Yeah.
understand the platform. Like you have to understand the platform as a viewer to
Mhm.
understand it as a creator. And if
Yeah.
and that's the thing too. It's like some people love long form. Like I love long form. I love YouTube. I love the platform. I love the content, right? TikTok, not so much. It's a little
Mhm.
much for me. And for you,
Yeah.
you obviously love TikTok, the content. So you have to also really, I think, love and appreciate the platform and that type of content as well. Because if you don't, you're not going to be able to do the research needed. Because that's all I think of it as research. It's not just like consuming
Yeah.
content. Like if you're creating content like you are, it's like this is part of your job. And I don't think enough
Yeah.
people, it doesn't even come up that much, even in this podcast, but it's a huge part of it. And
Yeah.
it's good to hear you say that because I think especially for TikTok, you have to spend time on the platform.
Yeah. I mean, I do some consulting for ByteDance, which is the
Hmm.
Chinese company that owns TikTok. And so I'll go to these meetings that they have with their largest advertisers and talk to them about how to create content that wins on the app. And one of the things I always say is that the best performing videos usually meet at the intersection of 3 points. They're timely, they're relatable, and they're authentic. So if you can create a video that meets those three criteria, chances are you'll have a better chance of it doing really well.
Hmm. But you
Yeah,
won't know if you're not on the platform.
exactly. Yes.
So it's interesting. I would imagine that a lot of these businesses that are trying to get in there, whether it's brands that are wanting to be sponsored or whatever it is, they probably have to have a team or people in place that literally just either they consult with people like you that know TikTok or that they just have people in there that are just watching TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, I really recommend to them to always to have that one person in house who just lives and breathes that platform because,
Hmm.
it's I think that they have to be able to jump on the trends. They have to be able to insert themselves into the conversations that's happening, like on viral videos. I always love it when I open up the comment section on TikTok and I see brands commenting and
Mm.
engaging with what's happening.
Hmm. Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's a human being behind there, so it's like
Yes.
they might as well. I mean, I think brands are wising up and they're understanding that because
Mhm.
that's how they're going to get the exposure they need, not by dictating. Even with YouTube, it's like when I talk to a lot of my clients, and it's kind of like, no, you got to educate the brands. Like they can't dictate to you. We want the video to look like this,
Yes.
and still expect it to do well,
Yes.
right? Because what the parameters that this brand is setting is the opposite of authenticity and what is going to do well, at least on YouTube, and I imagine on TikTok. So brands have to be kind of on the up and up of just
Yeah.
the nuances there.
I mean, and I get it. It's hard for brands, right?
Yeah.
Especially like these very legacy, like, kind of have that old Hearst media minded brands, right? They come from this other world of magazines and, where the conversation was really just one way. It was
Hmm.
where the brands, the advertisers, they got to just directly say whatever it is that they wanted to say to the viewer. And that was the flow of the communication. And now, really, I think what's happened is the communication is between the audience, the creator, and then the brand has to be invited into that conversation, and they don't get to dictate what's being said. They're just
Mm.
invited to kind of be there, weave in and out, but that's it. And they have to be respectful of this conversation happening between the audience and the creator, and partner with creators who have an authentic connection with their audience.
That's such a good way of phrasing it. I've never heard it phrased that way, and you're 100% right. It's like they're being invited, but they have to respect this conversation. They
Yeah.
can't dominate, they can't dictate it because that then it's gonna end the convo.
Yeah.
And the brand's not gonna get what they want, which is an ROI on their investment.
Exactly. I mean,
Mhm.
I like to think of it as like this equity value split, right? Like my job as the content creator is to take the goals and desires and wants of my audience, take the goals and desires and wants of the brands I work with, internalize them, and then create a piece of content that serves both of them. And what ends up happening with this brand, with this, value equity split, is that sometimes the brand will be so assertive with what they want. They'll say, okay, well, we want you to put the product up within the first 3 seconds. We want, you to say these like 10 bullet points. We want you to do all these things that make it feel inauthentic to me. And they just assert their wants and desires so much that the value split is like 70% of the value in the video is going towards them. And then the other 30% is entertainment or education that's going to the audience. And so what happens is the viewer is like, okay, I'm not getting enough out of this. It's 70% all the values to you, the brand. So I'm just going to swipe away. And when that happens, nobody wins. Nobody gets what they want. So my job is to kind of balance it out so that it's more like, 70% is going to the audience, 30% is going to the brand, because then the audience is like, oh, like I'm getting enough value out of here. So I'm going to give you my attention and my time and watch this. But it's hard for these brands because, they're so anxious. Like they're paying money to be a part of this piece of content. And if they're coming from, the old-minded way of advertising, they're looking at it in a very different way. And this is a new platform. And so it's kind of difficult for them. But, they have to be flexible and open-minded because then I think that's how their goals are going to be moved forward as well.
Yeah, they're learning. There's brands, I think, more and more that are starting to get it, and because they have to. So.
Yeah.
Do you have any of these questions or concerns about your YouTube channel? Did I pick the right niche? Should I be focusing on this audience for my channel? What kind of videos should I create that will attract a really good, loyal audience? Why am I growing so slow? I'm so overwhelmed with YouTube and I don't know if what I'm doing is the right thing to do to grow. Let me tell you, if you are thinking any of these things, you are not alone. Those are some of the questions I get most often as a YouTube strategist and coach for the last 7 years, and that is why I created my all-new $39 audience attraction system. The audience attraction system is based off of my experience coaching hundreds of YouTubers, many of which have grown tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of subscribers and attracted millions of views. I took the system that I use with my coaching clients and packaged it into the audience attraction system so that you now have access to this incredible action plan at a crazy low, affordable cost of $39. I want to give you the system you need to skyrocket your YouTube channel and start seeing results ASAP. Whether you're ready to blow up and scale the YouTube channel you already have, or you're just getting started but want to start seeing YouTube growth yesterday, the Audience Attraction System is the perfect fit for you. You can learn more about it by going to erikaviera.net/YAAS. Again, that is erikaviera.net/YAAS. Wow, I feel like we could talk about so much. So now we're going to the kind of last part of the interview where I ask you the same questions that I ask everyone that's been on the podcast. So yours are going to be more skewed towards TikTok, obviously. Sure. So you ready for that?
Yeah.
All right, Amy, let's do it. First question is, what is your number one struggle with TikTok?
Yeah, I would say the mental component of it. We as content creators are utilizing these apps that are structured in a way they're meant to affect our brain chemistry. And so I have to separate the fact that the content is not me. I'm separate from it, and not take things personal when content doesn't perform or when I get a negative comment, because that does happen. And so just remembering that there is that separation from me, Amy the person, and the content that I am creating, even though I am featured in the content itself. So I would say definitely that.
That's hard. And yeah, we haven't touched on this at all. And I know that TikTok, I think out of all the social platforms, is notorious for the most quote unquote hate, right? Or trolls. So have you experienced that troll-like behavior on TikTok?
I feel really fortunate that I haven't experienced it that much. I've had like one or two kind of negative comments here or there, but I think part of it is because my content, my platform's really all about like positivity. Like I don't speak negatively about brands or other influencers, or I just keep it pretty positive. And so I think my audience is pretty respectful because of that.
It's good, and that's encouraging that not everyone experiences that. So,
Yeah.
good. What if you were to start over with your TikTok right now? What, if anything, would you do differently?
Am I starting over in 2019 or am I starting over now?
Ooh, I would say, do you know what? To be most helpful for the people that are listening now, probably. I'm kind of curious about both because I'd be curious, like, now would you do versus like what you would do before.
Okay, so if I were starting over in 2019, I would do more videos because at that
More than
point in
five a
time,
day?
oh, more. I would be doing like 10 a day. Yeah. I
Oh
would be
my God.
doing more and I would be posting more than 3 times a day on Reels, which was what I was doing before. I probably would be doing 5 or maybe 6. Because, the way the algorithm works, it really, it rewards people who create a lot of content.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would be doing back in 2019. In now, 2023, what I would be doing if I was starting over, I would pick a very specific way, like a very specific style of shooting, and have a very specific intro. I would use the same music for like certain types of videos all the time. And I would kind of wear the same thing. I would keep it really consistent,
Like
right? You see,
branded in a way.
yes, exactly. Like mine is all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I talk a little about this, a little bit about that. I
Mm-hmm.
would definitely make it tighter and more structured in terms of the filming style and even the content. But I tried doing that early on, and it was really hard for me because I'm a creative person. I like trying new things. I didn't want to just do the same thing over and over again, but that's what the algorithm likes because then it knows it's like, okay, I know it knows immediately that this is an Amy video. I know exactly who to send it to. And that's how people really blow up when they do the same style over and over again.
Interesting. What if that style though, would you do it based upon if you had some videos do well? Because if someone's kind of struggling and not getting anywhere, you don't necessarily want to keep it the same if it's not generally working. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, I would do the same style, but then I would change the substance, what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying, or products that I'm featuring, or
Mm.
but I would keep the film style the same, and I would keep the intro the same.
Interesting. And you said that's because TikTok recognizes similarities amongst videos and therefore would push them out to more people? Or why is it exactly that you feel that that would be a really smart way to go?
So what happens is, I think it's kind of similar to YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like once you kind of get into this flywheel of, content that's doing well, the algorithm knows who to serve it to, then it's like, okay, like it gets into this rhythm of I know what this video is instantly about and I know exactly who to send it to.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just builds. It's like, okay, then these people liked it and now I know who to send it to and it builds and builds and builds. Whereas if you were to do like 3 videos where you're talking directly to the camera like this, and then you switch it up and do something different, then the algorithm tries to send that video to those same people. And maybe those same people aren't interested in it as much, or, just doesn't serve them. So they swipe away. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't know what to do with this video now. At
Mm-hmm.
least that's what the algorithm is thinking, right? But if you can keep things consistent,
Yeah.
then you can get into that flywheel with the algorithm.
So going back to your answer about what you would do back in 2019, put 10 videos up a day. Do you think that would be an effective strategy today as well?
No, no. I would do 1 to 2 videos a day
Mm-hmm.
now, and I would focus a bit more on the substance and the production because it's so saturated now that you have to figure out a way to
Mm,
stand out. Being
got it.
consistent is important, just like on YouTube, making sure to post, every day. If you're going to get into that rhythm, then stick
Mm-hmm.
with it.
Yeah.
You know.
And back then it was about just getting out there because it
Yeah,
just wasn't as much out there. So it's like just
exactly.
flooding with your content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that there's something to be said about early adopters, and like it's kind of like
Yeah.
if you can be early, It's always beneficial. What would you say is your favorite video? I mean, you've done so many, but your favorite video you've created?
One that stands out is one that got 36 million views. And so sometimes I would see myself in the mirror and be like, oh, I have a little bit of a double chin. And then I realized later, I was like, oh, it's actually just because I'm slightly hunched forward
Mm,
and that it's like the skin is just kind of
sitting back.
bagging right
Yeah.
there. But it's not actually that I have a double chin. So I was like, oh, it's just my posture.
Hmm.
So I created this video, and the sound is you don't have a double chin. You just have bad posture. So all
Mm,
you need to do is like lift your shoulders up, down, and back, and then slightly move your chin forward. And people thought it was the funniest thing. People did so many like stitches and riffs, like making fun of the sound, having fun with it, doing it. And that was the first one that I had that like went really viral. But I think that video stands out. But there have been so many. I mean, I really have enjoyed the past like 4 years on TikTok. Is that right? My God,
19, 20,
or 3 years?
23. No,
Yeah.
4 years. Yeah. 3.5.
Mhm.
Wow. That's a lot of content. How many videos have you created? Do you know?
Oh my God, I don't even know because they don't do a count on
No, I
TikTok
know.
like they do on YouTube. Yeah,
It's
but
a
it's a
lot.
lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
What would you say is your number one tip for preserving your mental health as a content creator?
Yeah, creating boundaries and taking breaks. So for me, that's, not working on weekends. And then every so often, I would say like every 5, 6 months, I need a full week off. And so I did that in December.
Hmm.
I didn't open any of the social media apps. I just was completely off of it. And at first, it was a little anxiety inducing. So I'm like, oh my God, my audience is going to forget about me after a week. Like, what's going to happen with my consistency with the algorithms and all of this, right? And then I finally just like let it go on day 3 and had like the best nap ever because my mind was
Yeah,
relaxed.
yeah.
I was so present with my family over the holidays. It was really magical. And then I came back so unbelievably refreshed and I was ready to hit the ground running. And I had
Hmm.
all these great creative ideas and the content hit. And so, your brain needs a little bit of a break from being creative. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Um, have you ever wanted to just give up? If so, what happened there and how'd you get back on track?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I remember this moment in 2019. I was sitting at the kitchen counter or sitting at the dining room table with my husband, and he was like, you know, what's going on? You're doing this, you're doing the blog, the Instagram thing, you're trying to make YouTube work. Like none of it was working. I mean, it had been 3 years and I hadn't been able to turn it into a viable business, but I just loved doing it.
Hmm.
And, we were spending money so that I could send my daughter Chloe to daycare part-time so that I could do this and
Yeah.
go to events and network and create the content. And he was like, we're spending all this money to do this. Like, what's happening here? Like,
Hmm.
are you going to continue?
Where's the
And
ROI? Yeah, the
exactly. And
time and
so,
investment. Yep. I think a lot
yeah,
of creators have that
ex-
talk with themselves or a significant other or something like that.
yeah. And so he was like, what's happening? What are you going to do? And I just said, okay, give me 6 more months. Let's see what happens. And this was the fall of, this was,
You said 2019.
no, it was the fall of 2018.
Okay. So before you did
So,
TikTok.
yeah.
Hmm.
And then, was it fall or winter? But like 4 or 5 months later, I got on TikTok and it started taking off. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And then I kept going. But yeah, there was that moment where I almost just threw in the towel and was like, because I couldn't grow on Instagram forever. I was stuck at 20,000 followers for like, 3 years or
Yeah, I
something.
know.
Couldn't get it to grow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I remember I looked because I was following you because we became friends and stuff. And then I remember looking at your Instagram at one point and I'm like, what? What? It was like 300,000 or something like that. I'm like, wait a minute. Because I think I'd always followed your content and like
Yeah.
engaged, but I didn't like look at I didn't spend time like, oh, how many followers does she has? And I think somehow I
Yeah.
went on your thing or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, Amy. And I think at some point I reached out. I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, congrats. Or,
Yeah. I remember
I'm
that.
like,
Yeah.
wow. Like, I didn't even know. So but you attribute the Instagram growth to the TikTok growth.
That's how it happened first.
Mm-hmm.
And it just from TikTok and reposting some of that stuff onto Instagram. This was before Reels came out. So I was posting the videos in feed on Instagram. I got to like 80,000 followers on Instagram. And then when Reels came out and I had all of this content for short form already from TikTok and I
Mm-hmm.
just started reposting all of it, then it really took off.
Yeah. 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 And so you find that TikTok videos do well on Instagram. Like, have you found that if you have a viral hit on TikTok, can you pretty much like guarantee, like, okay, I know this is definitely going to do well on Instagram, and then same thing with YouTube? Or have you sometimes seen like things go crazy viral on TikTok, but they just bomb on the other platforms?
So if it goes viral on TikTok, it will go viral like 90% of the time on Instagram and YouTube. If it does okay, like a couple 100,000 on TikTok, it will go viral on Reels and YouTube Shorts. At least that's what I've found with my content. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it does translate. So do you
Yeah.
purposely do you put everything on Instagram and Shorts, or do you just take kind of the best of the best from TikTok and then put it on the other platforms? Almost like it's like TikTok's like a testing ground in a way.
So I curate it for Instagram just because I know the audience is different. I have a more mature audience.
Mm.
And then some of the stuff I can put into stories too. But everything gets reposted onto Shorts.
Mm. Okay. And how's that going for you?
I mean, I have 100,000 followers
That's
just from
good.
reposting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, you got that silver play button, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I mean, Shorts is a thing now on YouTube,
hmm
and if you're doing it pretty consistently, so are you doing just one video a day, or are you doing multiple a day since you have such a library of older videos?
Yeah. Well, I've already gone through a lot of it
Oh,
because
you've
I was
gone.
doing like three,
Okay.
sometimes five videos. I mean, I was really uploading a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Because YouTube, the Shorts is kind of the same way. Just they want more content. I
Yeah.
think anything with short form, they're wanting like a ton of content out there.
Yeah.
Um, Any were there any video that you were really excited about that just bombed?
Oh man, I mean, it happens and it
Yeah,
happens a lot.
yeah.
And I got to just pick myself back up and get back out there and create content again. But there are times like I think something's going to be really funny and then it doesn't resonate. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But for the most part, try to keep the videos up. Like sometimes it's too difficult like mentally for me to see it. So
Mm,
I'll privatize it or I'll take it down. But there are times I'm like, oh, okay, that one didn't do that well and I left it up. And then literally a month later, it will take off.
mm.
So
Yeah.
I try to force myself not to delete videos. Like I had this one video where I'm applying sunscreen. I'm not saying anything. There's just music in the background when I was on vacation. And it got like 50,000 views on TikTok, which is, for me and not great. It's okay. And I just was like, okay, I'll just leave it there, right? And now it's at 600,000, which is months and months and months later, which
Yeah.
is atypical for TikTok. I know that that happens more frequently on YouTube.
Yeah, it happens a lot
Usually
on
on
YouTube.
TikTok, yeah, I'll see right away if the video is going to do well or not, just the way the algorithm is structured.
Hmm.
But it does every so often happen on TikTok. It's rare though, for me at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Um, what is the biggest opportunity you got as a result of being a content creator?
Um, I would say the one that really stands out is when I went to Paris on a PR trip
I
with
saw
Dior.
that. I was like, oh my God, that looked amazing.
It was such a dream, and
Hmm.
not only for like the wonderful experience that I had with the brand and being in Paris, and I got to bring a plus one, and I brought my best friend, but my family saw it and they were like, "Oh wow, okay, what
It's
Amy's doing
legit.
is actually." Exactly. And up until that point, I don't think my family or extended family really
Mm.
understood. I mean, I don't think they still understand to this day really what it is that I
Yeah.
do. I mean, I still remember when I told my parents, I was like, "Oh, I'm not going to go back and work in PR. I'm going to
Yeah.
start a blog," and they were just like, "What? What blog?"
Yeah.
I remember trying to explain it to my uncle, and he was just like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, fast forward to this your trip, I was like, "Oh, I'm, going to here," and they're so proud of me, and just they were so excited, and I don't think they know what it means, but they're like, "Oh wow, that's great."
Yeah, that was so
That was a
cool.
moment.
Because you were there for
Yeah.
how long in Paris?
5 days.
And it looked like they just wined and dined you.
It was amazing. Yeah, we really got to have the full Christian Dior experience. So they took us out to Normandy, which is where Christian Dior grew up, and we went to his house that he lived in and
Wow.
grew up in, and we got to see, the rose gardens where he fell in love with roses and flowers, and really that was the inspiration for a lot of
His
his
prints.
couture fashion designs.
Hmm.
They took us, they turned the house into a museum, and so we got to see like the first J'adore perfume bottle or the
So
Miss
cool.
Cherie perfume. It was just a really amazing experience. Yeah.
How many other
So grateful for it.
creators? So it was more of like was it more beauty based because you're mainly beauty, or
It
was it
was.
okay? How
Yeah.
many creators were invited to that?
Yeah. So it was me and two others.
Oh, that's it.
It was me, yeah, from the US market. So
Oh,
it
from
was
okay,
me and Mariana Hewitt
okay.
and Sai, this other woman, her handle Scout the City and
Hmm.
on Instagram. And then they had other influencers, like a couple of them from each of the markets, like the Middle East,
Mm.
Asia,
Okay.
and France. Yeah.
Wow, wow. But there are only three from the U.S.
Yeah.
Did they ever
It
tell
was.
you? Did you have a relationship with them prior? Did they say why specifically you were chosen for this? I mean, I'm assuming you worked with
Yeah.
them, or.
Yeah, so we had a relationship before. When they were here in LA, I met their team, and I was kind of hesitant at first because I was like, "Oh, I don't know about these skincare products,"
Hmm.
because I just wasn't sure that it was in alignment with what I stand for and what I communicate with my audience, right?
Hmm.
But, the team really explained to me like, hey, look, Dior is making this huge push to make their skincare like serious skincare.
Mm.
It's all eco-friendly packaging now. Everything's going to be refillable. I mean, just so mindful about the care and the ingredients. I feel like they really listen to like Gen Z, the people out
Mm.
there, what it is that they want, took that and like really are walking the walk, like in terms of diversity too,
Hmm.
like the models that they use. I mean, I'm pretty impressed and amazed by that brand. And I feel like the skincare too is like very serious. Like they have 6 patents on one of their new serums, and
Mm.
like that really won me over. And I was like, okay, like we met and I got to talk to them about all of this, and I was like, yeah, I want to be on board here.
Wow, that's what a cool opportunity. That's amazing. So, what would you say is your superpower that you think has led to your success on TikTok?
Yeah. So I think just more generally, like what has led to my
Hmm.
success, like with my platforms, is I'm constantly looking for a new challenge, which, if you look back at the past 6 years or 7 years that I've been doing this, like first year was the blog, second year Instagram, third year YouTube, fourth year TikTok. Like I'm always looking for new ways to challenge myself and learn new skills so that I can create the best content for my audience.
Hmm.
I think that is really what helps me to be good at my craft.
And I think in this world, you have to be up for that because there's so many
Yeah.
changes, and there's new platforms, and there's just new things
Mhm.
to learn. And so if you're not okay with some change or willing to tackle something new, then it's going to be hard.
Yeah, for
So,
sure. You
hmm.
definitely have to be open to evolving. Yeah.
Hmm. And then last question, what is your number one piece of advice that you would tell somebody who is just starting out on TikTok?
So this is perfect because I actually just went to breakfast with a friend who wants to get onto social media, and I have to like really push her. And I said to her, like, write it down because you'll know internally like what it is that you want to put out there into a world. I think it can feel very overwhelming to just start. You're like, well, where do I start? Right. So I got her a journal and I was like, write down what you want your channel to look like, feel like, sound like. What's the programming? What do you want to talk about? Just write it all down. Okay. And then you can start to organize your thoughts. I think what happens is people get so caught up in what they're thinking about, the anxieties, the uncertainty. And if you can take all of that and put it down onto paper and look at it, it's really helpful. And then you can start to organize like what makes sense, what's me just overthinking, what's this direction, where do I want to go? I'm sure a lot of it is very similar to like what you do with your boot
It
camps,
is,
right?
yeah. Like the first
Like,
4 weeks is literally like 50 pages of workbooks and exactly that kind of
yeah,
stuff. You have to do that.
yes. So
Hmm.
I would say that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good advice because it's without a foundation in place, and this is the one thing I've learned by working with so many people. Without that kind of foundation, like you said, kind of flushing out what's in your mind and like getting really,
Yeah.
really clear with like what you want to
Mhm.
do, the messaging, everything. It becomes it's really hard otherwise because then what happens is that you're chasing. It's easy to chase like the trends and like okay, I'm going to try that, try that when you don't have anything rooting you down, and
Yeah.
you have to have that very strong because like you said, like you almost need to you have to understand the trends and what's happening with the trends, like as you said, but you have to bring your own interpretation of it, but without understanding like what you have to bring to the table or what you want to do or what the impact you want to make, it'll fall flat because then it'll just look like it's just
Yeah.
copying, right? Like you had
Yes.
that trifecta. That was really good. What was it again? Like authenticity, trending,
So
relevance,
timely,
timely.
yeah, timely, authentic, timely, relatable, and authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. And that authentic piece is where it comes in with you
Yes.
understanding, having some self-awareness of what you bring to the table, what you want to bring to the table, and then roping it in with everything else. So, Amy, I mean, I knew you were going to come on and just kind of blow us away with so much information because that's one thing I knew about you from before is that you're so strategic and you're really, really savvy when it comes to social media. So I'm so glad to have you back on. Thank you so much for taking the time to share all of your amazing knowledge with our viewers and listeners here. So for anybody that's not familiar with you and your content, where can they find you?
Yeah. So they can find me at Bond and Avant on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and it's spelled BONDENAVANT. Also, like if I was going back in time, I probably would just have the handle be my first and last
Yeah.
name.
Because I was even going to say, and it may be easier. Her name is Amy Chang, so you can search that as well.
So funny. Yes.
Yeah, but I will link everything below. I agree, especially since Bon and Avant. I remember talking about the name Bon and Avant too, and like where that came from. But especially because especially if you're American, like kind of difficult to pronounce. And like, what is
Yeah.
that? And so I'm
Yeah.
with you on that. The first and last name. Just get your first and last
Mhm.
name. So,
Exactly.
oh my gosh. All right, Amy. Well, thank you so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was good to
Bye.
see you again.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.